Not only did he fail to place this assault on voting rights in the important and shocking context of the minority voters it's directly targeting, all he mustered the will to say was, hey, Senate, pass these acts. With all due respect, Mr. President, the Senate isn't passing them. That's the whole problem. Look, no politician acts without calculation. So the question we should be asking ourselves isn't, how could Biden do this? How could the man who ran on fighting systemic racism seemingly dismiss these issues in the biggest speech of all? Rather, we should be asking, why did Biden feel he needed to? And what will these choices from last night mean for him, his party, and our country in the coming months? Joining me now to help answer these questions is Rashad Robinson, president of the civil liberties nonprofit Color of Change, and Elie Mystal, justice correspondent for The Nation and author of the new book that's just come out, Allow Me to Retort, A Black Guy's Guide to the Constitution. Thank you both for joining me tonight. Rashad, let me start with you. Before Biden's speech last night, you tweeted, looking forward to hearing about how POTUS will treat crises affecting black people at home with the same urgency he treats crises abroad. Is it safe to say you don't think he treated crises affecting black people at home with the same urgency as, I don't know, Ukraine?
That's absolutely safe to say. And it's not even that he didn't treat them, as seriously as he treated something like Ukraine. It's that he pretended like they didn't even exist. The idea that we can bring people together around race without talking about race is a strategy that has failed us time and time again. The other side will constantly talk to race, either explicitly or implicitly. And when our side decides, when people who want to pass progressive policies believe they can do so with ignoring race, they constantly fail. Unfortunately, Biden continues to do this same thing over and over again, continues to fail on these issues, and then continues to refuse, in the face of all that, to try something new, to lean into the things that actually have succeeded when he's tried them, which has helped him get elected, which is recognize the role of racial justice as the most powerful motivating force we have right now in this country, the thing that will actually get people engaged. And it's a problem. And the fact of the matter is it's going to cost him in 2022 and 2024 if he doesn't change course.
What's so weird is it's not as if he didn't recognize this before. It's not as if he's never said this. This is the guy who talked about systemic racism in the past, talked about George Floyd in the past, talked very well in many times during the campaign and at the start of his presidency. It's just he stopped talking about it. Elie, I'm going to point out one of your tweets as well to bring you in. After Biden's speech, you quoted Biden's comment on needing to fund and not defund the police, and you said that was nonsense, but it's what whites want to hear. It's true, it is probably what a lot of white America wants to hear, but it's also what many in black America want to hear as well, isn't it? One poll from Pew in October found that since 2020, the number of black adults who wanted police spending in their area to decrease fell 19 percentage points from 42 to 23%. So Biden's, whether we like it or not just speaking to white people, is he, on this issue?
Well, he's speaking to some black people older black people generally, who are kind of already with him. Right now, Biden's polling numbers sit at about 66% of the African-American vote. Folks, that's unsustainable for a Democrat, all right? People want Biden to win. I want Biden to win. I cannot make that happen with 66% of the vote, right? So what you got to do, if you actually are concerned with having Democrats elected to office and having Democrats hold on to the White House and Congress, you got to tell me that if Biden was elected with about 87% of the black vote and now has 66% of the black vote, you got to tell me, who did Biden pick up last night in that speech? Who was with Biden 2 years ago, who is not with him now, that he gained in that speech that is black? And I submit no one. I submit he did not convert a single black voter back over to his side, because while fund the police,
but maybe Elie, he wasn't trying to convert black voters. Maybe the thinking is we need to get those white centrist imaginary swing voters, in many cases independents, back. I'm guessing that is some of the thinking. And the thinking is we need to deny that we are defund the police people, because that's what the Republicans attack us with. But Rashad, I want to play a clip to you from Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds last night. Have a listen to what she said just afterwards.
We now live in a country where violent crime is out of control. Liberal prosecutors are letting criminals off easy, and many prominent Democrats still want to defund the police. You know, it seems like everything is backwards.
Rashad, the leader of the Democratic Party says in the biggest speech of the year, I don't support defunding the police. Minutes later, the Republican Party says, the Democrats support defunding the police. Like, denying it doesn't actually help you when it comes to Republicans. Republicans are just going to say whatever they're going to say. So is it strategically wise here to keep harping on about this one activist phrase? We had a discussion on this show recently where an expert on messaging was telling me that the more you deny something, you're actually putting the idea out there and making people think about it more.
This is what we see over and over on race in terms of messaging with the Democratic Party. We see it when it comes to the attacks on Black history in schools, where Democrats will say, oh, no, we're not teaching CRT, instead of actually going on the offense around how the same people that want to make sure girls don't learn math and that gay teachers aren't in schools and we don't learn about evolution are also trying to ban Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. Then we see the same thing here on policing, that where there's a lot of guns, and where there's a lot of poverty and where there's a lot of trauma, there will be a lot of gun violence. And it is disingenuous for anyone who does not actually want to deal with poverty to actually want to deal with guns, and who doesn't want to deal with trauma to say that they actually care about public safety. But instead, we fall right into this trap because we will refuse to have a conversation about what it really means to reimagine public safety, what it means to make communities whole and make those investments. And so we end up in this conversation about whether or not there's going to be more money for policing or less money for policing, when we need to have a conversation about what will actually make communities whole and make investments in the things that actually keep communities safe. And the Democrats running from that is not going to help us because the Republicans have our number on it.
So on the subject of investment and Democrats running from that, one Democrat who isn't running, Ellie, after Biden's speech, was Congresswoman Cori Bush, who tweeted that 2021 set a record for fatal police shootings. And she reiterated, defund the police, invest in our communities. Interestingly, though, that's one voice in Congress out of hundreds. I don't know about you, Ellie, but I feel like we hear way more people condemning defund the police from both sides of the aisle and from right-wing media outlets than we ever hear people actually vocally saying defund the police. Cori Bush is an anomaly within our party, is she not?
Sure, but I want to bring it back to something you said earlier off of the Kim Reynolds thing, right? It is interesting to me that people like Biden, people like establishment Democrats, people like the mainstream of this party seem to have so much smoke for funding police to over-police Black communities, but don't have the smoke to go out and stop the criminals who attacked this country on January 6th. There was ample opportunity. If Biden wanted to talk about policing, there was ample opportunity for him to make a one-to-one connection between the authoritarian emergency that we're seeing in Europe that he started his speech with the authoritarian attempted takeover of this country. And you notice he didn't do it. You notice that he was, in the end of the day, more afraid of the Lauren Boeberts, who, as you pointed out, heckled him and disrespected him. He was more afraid of calling her and her people terrorists who were bent on destroying the country than he was of his own base voters.
The missed opportunity, Ellie, that you just mentioned there of not going straight from the democratic crisis in Eastern Europe to the very real democratic crisis here in the United States, calling out what he's called Jim Crow 2.0 in the past, seemed bizarre to me. I don't understand why you wouldn't do that when you've got a bunch of brilliant, brainy people in the White House helping you write your speech and not pointing out the obvious segue. I genuinely don't get that. And Rashad, on that note, let me ask you this. This is a president who has talked about the attack on voting rights in very strong terms. You know, the Bull Connor analogy that he used in January in Atlanta. He's talked about George Floyd in very strong terms. He's signed executive orders related to racial justice. He picked a Black woman to run as his vice president. He's nominated the first Black woman to the Supreme Court. And yet last night, he did not want to talk about any of that. Why do you think that is? Is that because the Democrats at the top have decided that being too woke, talking too much about racial justice is going to cost them seats in the midterms? They bought into that trope?
Well, right now they're slated to lose seats in the midterms, and they don't have a strategy to mobilize the people that they need the most, to create sort of the energy from a base that's actually going to help them sort of hold on to numbers. And so the fact of the matter is that they probably have that calculation, but that calculation in the end is going to be dead wrong, because at the end of the day, what 2020 showed us is that racial justice can be a powerful motivating force when you invest in it, when you engage it. But people are looking for results. They're not looking for sort of platitudes, and they're certainly not looking for things that feel cosmetic without actually passing real legislation and moving issues forward. And when you're on the biggest stage in the country and the people that brought you to that stage are ignored, their issues are ignored, people will remember it. At the end of the day, though, this is not about words. This will be about actions. And the Biden administration has time to actually deliver on real actions. But if they're not talking about it at the State of the Union address, there's real questions about what they are doing when they're not on those big stages, how they're actually moving these issues forward. And for a lot of us doing this work, we are sort of waiting to see real results, and we're troubled.
It's a very good point. Rashad Robinson and Elie Mystal, whose book, again, is Allow Me to Retort. Thank you both for your time tonight. I appreciate it. Hi, I'm Mehdi Hasan. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more of the Mehdi Hasan Show by clicking on any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thank you for watching.